Hi, and welcome to this episode of Tiny Pulpit Talk. We have been thinking a lot about questions that you have and asking you for questions. We want to hear from you, first of all, and this has been such an exciting time to hear from you, to engage with you, and we are really excited to get into some of these questions and answer them. Please subscribe, please like us, please send us information that you want to have answered. Please engage with us. That's the first thing, and we're really excited to do this. I realize I'm alone here. I'm in our beautiful library that our wonderful library committee is working on, and you should always come and visit our banned books section, which is wonderful here. That gives you an idea of some of the ways we're thinking, some of the foundations that we are built upon. So what we want to talk about today is something that we got a lot of questions about. It's something we hear about a lot, and it really comes down to the question of, are Unitarian Universalists Christian? Or where is Unitarian Universalism in the Christianity world? Yes and no is sort of the answer. A little history. Christianity, as we think of it today, really didn't coalesce until about the 4th century AD, or of the Common Era. AD is very passé. So what happened was there were a number of books that had been written about Jesus and about the community that grew up about him, around him, that was grown from the people who were his apostles in the earliest days of the faith community that he built. Christianity for a long time was just called the Way, or it was called the Cult of Christ. It had a lot of names in the early days that people don't like as much now, and I understand. But what happened was it really caught on in the Roman Empire and its environs, and people wrote a lot about it, which we think of today as the church parents. Some call it the church fathers, but there were plenty of church mothers as well, writing, practicing, doing all those things. And the Christian tradition was codified more or less in a conference with Constantine, the emperor of Rome at the time, of the Roman Empire, who was in Constantinople. Anyone who names a city after themselves, you gotta kind of wonder, what's going on with their hopes for the future. And he really liked Christianity because he could sort of play the role of God himself and God's messenger. So just be aware that a lot of Christian traditions we inherited from the 300 years after the life of Jesus. And many denominations really hold to these sanctified or decided were sacred books that are in what is really a library of the Bible. We call the Bible a book, but it's a library of more than 70 books. Some are a little bit more reliable than others. Some denominations like more what's in that than others. And the Hebrew scriptures are part of that book. So I just share all this first as a little bit of something to send you down a Wikipedia hole and start learning a little bit about. Also, you can take a lot of classes at our church and learn more about this. So that's the first thing I want to say as a preface about what is Christianity. Are we Christian is the question. At last count, roughly a quarter of Unitarian Universalists actually consider themselves Christian nationwide. So there's a Unitarian Universalist Christian fellowship that has many members, and I have been in meetings in UU churches where we talk very intimately about our faith, and one of my favorite things I've ever heard at one of those is, I'm Christian, but I only feel comfortable saying that here. Because what Christianity means in the world, especially the last 5 years or so in the United States and in Europe, is a kind of brand of dominance in many ways, of moral superiority, of attuning oneself to the letter of the law about things. So this church and this faith does not ascribe itself to that kind of Christianity as a dominant faith that should be part of everything one does. I like to say, and other ministers might have a different take, is that we try to practice the religion of Jesus, who was Jewish and who was called rabbi in the scriptures, and who over and over proclaimed much of the wisdom from the Hebrew scriptures translated into new commandments about loving yourself and loving your neighbor. So in that sense, we are Christian, and I think we are. However, other people might disagree. So that was a very long answer. Someone did ask, would you say your church is more Christian-based? This Unitarian church probably follows more of the Unitarian traditions that are Christian than your average UU church. We do Maundy, Thursday, we do Christmas, we really coalesce around those times of celebration because Unitarianism came out of Christianity, and in some parts of the world, it is still considered a denomination of Christianity. So we are closer to that thinking, that philosophy, that religion, than we are to a lot of other sort of multi-faith kind of faith expressions. There are plenty of UU churches that have embraced an identity that is more multi-faith, very balanced, and trying to hold in tension and find the truth underlying all of those faith traditions. And there is something kaleidoscopically beautiful about that. There's the beautiful metaphor of the Cathedral of the world, is what Forest Church called it, where you come into a UU church and the sun is shining through the stained glass. And wherever you stand in the sanctuary will be a different color, will be a different shade, will have a different look, will cast a different shadow. You may not even want to stand in the sun. You may want to be somewhere else. But the sun is the same. The sun is one. The sun is love. The sun is truth. The sun is all of those things that shines through in ways that we understand differently. And I think one of the strengths of our faith is the flexibility to move with those who are in that house of worship, in that church, in that community, to meet the needs that they have. So, are we more Christian-based? Yes, this church is. Other UU churches? Maybe not. Here's a question from one of our members. Since we're not Christian, we already discussed that a little bit, why do we celebrate Christmas, Maundy, Thursday, and Easter? And I love this. This is a very our church thing. I don't mind, but it's never made sense. Could we add important celebration days from other religions? This is a question we get about worship planning. You know, there's only 52 Sundays and some other days. This church, because it is so rooted, it comes out of the 19th century and is really rooted in the Christian tradition. That is really what we follow here. When the UU was created in 1961, when Unitarianism and Universalism joined, many of the churches that were created before that coalescing together of the two faiths kind of picked one or the other and kind of kept their traditions. But churches that formed after that joining, those you will actually find a little bit more of this multi-faith idea and that balancing that we already talked about. And there you might find that. We do our best really to honor traditions that are coming up on Sundays. We make allusions to them, or we discuss the truth inherent in them. But yes, we do stick to our traditions here. And I think it's one of the things that helps us stand out a little bit is, especially in Texas, where so much Christianity can be understood and experienced and felt as so harmful, I think there is something to be said here in this state, in this time, in this place, to be teasing out the love of our neighbors, to be teasing out the love of oneself, and to love the whole person into being, into growth, into flourishing, and to be building a community. That's all Jesus ever was trying to do. He set some rules, he gave some moral guidance, and built a beautiful community out of which people have made what they will with. We choose to hold to this way of thinking and community building that this church has inherited from its astounding elders and people who came before us. So in that spirit, I'm so grateful to be part of this community. I'm grateful you are listening to this and that you are part of our community. I hope we've answered some of these questions. And in the great UU tradition, I hope we've raised more questions than we answered, because that's kind of what we do here. So I hope you'll tune in again next week when we will look at some more questions or maybe have a guest here at Tiny Pulpit Talk. We never really know what is going to be coming up next week. So just subscribe, let us know what you think, and we want to hear from you, and we love you, and we are sending our best here from the church. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.